Welcome back to DSR. We're returning to finish the 5th edition expanded content spells that are still valid for 5.5e, so they're still going to be covered. Most of these come from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and these are going to be in the spells playlist. Create Magen, or Magen, or Magen. I'm not sure which one it is. Magen is what I've always said. This is available only to wizards, and it was released in Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden, and that's all I'll say about it. It is an hour to cast, but the duration is permanent. While casting the spell, you place a vial of quicksilver in the chest of a life-sized human doll stuffed with ash or dust. When you stitch up the doll and then drip your blood in it. At the end of the casting, you tap the doll with a crystal rod, transforming it into a Magen clothed in whatever the doll was wearing. The type of Magen is chosen by you during the casting of the spell. See the appendix for different kinds of Magen and their statistics. And this book had 3 different Magen. There was the Demos, the Galvan, and the Hypnos Magen. But we got 3 new Magen in the book we got last year, Nethril Fall of Nethril's Fall. So there's 3 new ones that are all higher stat blocks than this. So the Hypnos is CR1, the Galvan is CR, I think the Demos is CR2, and the Galvan is CR3. So we got a CR4, a CR6, and a CR8, which are better. Here's the problem though. When the Magen appears, your hit point maximum decreases by an amount equal to the Magen's challenge rating, minimum reduction of 1. Only a wish spell can undo this reduction to your hit point maximum. Yeah, so the higher the CR, the more hit points you lose forever. Any Magen you create with the spell obeys your commands without question. And the material component is a vial of quicksilver worth 500 gold pieces and a life-sized human doll, both of which the spell consumes, and an intricate crystal rod worth at least 1,500 gold pieces that is not consumed. So you can reuse the crystal rod, but you're going to spend 500 gold pieces every time you create one of these, whether it's CR1 or CR8. So here are the stat blocks. Hypnos Magen. They're all constructs. This one has AC of 12, hit points 30. It's only CR1, so it's not that tough. You wouldn't expect it to be that tough. The ability scores are okay. It's immune to poison damage and the poison condition, charmed, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed conditions. It has magic resistance, so it's got some survivability. And then some features that don't matter very much for it. And then it has its only attack is this thing called Psychic Lash, which is a saving throw attack for all or nothing. Like there's no damage on a successful save, no half damage on a save. So, and it's only a DC of 12. So its damage is not going to be very good. You're at least level 11. This thing's going to have minimal impact in damage at this level. However, it can cast Suggestion at will. The save DC is only 12, so it's not super strong, and it requires no material components. It just can cast this all the time. However, if a creature succeeds on a saving throw against the Suggestion, then it cannot use it against that creature again for 24 hours. So even though it can cast it every single round, it can only cast it once per day on the same target, which makes sense. This is only CR1. That would be way too powerful if this thing could just cast it all the time on the same target. So if you want to use these, like one way to look at this might be, okay, this is only CR1, therefore you're only going to lose 1 maximum hit point for casting this. So maybe create 10 or 20 of these, have them stay as far back as you possibly can, and have them just run up and start. And they're creatures, so they can attune to their own magic items. They have their own action economy. You can tell them what to do, but it doesn't take any action economy from you to do that. So they all roll their own initiative, have them one at a time go up and try to use Suggestion on the same target until one of them succeeds. And once they succeed on suggesting a target, then they start suggesting on the next target. And they just keep doing that until they get everybody under the Suggestion spell, or everybody you want to have under the Suggestion spell. So it can be pretty powerful control, but then you lose 10 or 20 maximum hit points by creating 10 or 20 of these. I don't know if you want 20 at that point. And the danger is they all get taken out by a fireball or a couple of fireballs or something like that. And then you've lost those hit points forever for nothing, which is the big downside of this. The only thing that brings those hit points back is a wish spell, which you can't get till you're level 17. So we'll come back to that. Then there's the Demos Magen. This one's just a frontliner, a meat shield. It's got the same kind of stats as the Hypnos, a little more hit points, a little better AC. Same magic resistance. It's got a great weapon attack and a light crossbow attack, both of which aren't very good. I mean, they're fine for a CR2 creature. They're just not very good relative to like level 11 creatures or CR11 creatures that you're facing. But they do get 2 attacks. I don't think it's worth giving up 2 of your hit points for a meat shield that's not particularly tough. I don't know if that makes sense. Then there's the Galvan, and this is a lightning-based one, so it's got the most hit points of these 3, 14 AC, which is not the best, but it's also immune to lightning damage. So it's got a little extra lightning or a little extra resistance. Same magic resistance, and this one has either 2 melee attacks that are all lightning based, or it has this like kind of a mini lightning bolt blast that it can do once every 3-ish rounds. It has a recharge of 5 to 6. The DC is only a 14 on that lightning save, the lightning damage save, but creatures that are wearing metal armor have disadvantage on the saving throw, so that'll help it. The damage is only 22 on average, or 4d10, which is not as bad as you might think it is. I know 4d10 doesn't sound as big as 8d6, but 8d6 is 28 damage on average, and this is 22 damage on average. You're looking at like 70% of the damage of a lightning bolt, and they can just do this every 3 rounds all day, every 3 rounds on average all day long. So if you had a 10 of these and moved them up and had them all blast, I don't know, that's 40 d10 damage, right? 220 damage. Yeah, I don't know. That could be decent, but you've given up 60 hit points to do that. And level 11, you probably don't have much more than 70, 80 maybe. So you're giving up all your hit points to do that. I would definitely wait until I got access to Wish before I tried that. Then there's the CR4. This one's one of the new ones in Netheril's Fall. This one is certainly tougher, 20 AC, 67 hit points. So it's got less hit points than the Galvan, but more AC than any of those others. It's also proficient in perception skill. It's immune to acid, as well as some more conditions, blinded and petrified, paralyzed. It's got a couple more condition immunities. Same magic resistance. This has 2 attacks using its extended fist and acid spittle. So it makes 1 of each of these attacks. So the extended fist is a reach 15 at melee attack, dealing on average of 13 damage, but then they're auto grappled by it. And then the acid spit, which is a ranged attack, dealing also 13 damage on average. So it's, if both of its attacks hit, it's dealing 26 damage per round, which is okay. I don't know if that's worth giving up for maximum hit points. The CR6 Vervos Magen, AC 21. This is the highest AC of all so far. Hit points 110. It's got beefy amount of hit points. It's got fly speed. Now the Galvan has a fly speed of 20 or 30. So this one has a fly speed of 20. It's immune to psychic damage plus all the same conditions that the Cauldron Magen is immune to. This one has a psychic blast. You can make 2 of these attacks that are melee or ranged and deal 66 damage, which is an average of 21. 66 sounds like a lot, but it's only 21 damage on average. But it makes 2 of those attacks every single round, no recharge, nothing. It just can do that every round all day long. So if both of those hit, it's doing 42 damage, and this is the first one that feels like this might be worth it, especially since it has spell casting and it can cast Hypnotic Pattern and Major Image once per day. Yeah, that's starting to get spicy. Then the last one is the Terran Magen. This one has an AC of 21, 121 hit points. It is immune to thunder damage, and then everything else that the previous 2 are immune to. It has the best perception skill modifier. It has multi-attack for 2 attacks using Hammer Fist or Thunderous Boom. Hammer Fist is a melee attack, dealing bludgeoning and force damage, a total of 29 on average. And then the Thunderous Boom is a range attack, dealing an average of 28 damage for a full 8d6, right? That's 28 damage on average, but it's thunder damage. And that's 2 attacks at range. So if it does hits with both of those, it's 56 damage every round all day long, which is sounding pretty spicy now. It's got spell casting as well for Mage Hand, Mending, and Prestidigitation, mostly the utility stuff, but it's also got Disintegrate, Move Earth, and Stone Shape. Now, this one is designed, it was like created by the Netheril, which is what all these modules were created by. They were created by the Netheril. This one is designed to like build things and construct things and be like a big earth mover. That's why it's called the Terran Magen. And if you want to like disintegrate boulders that are in your path and things like that, that's why it's good. Disintegrate, right? But also Disintegrate is on a summon a pretty good spell, right? That thing can do an average of 75 damage if they fail their saving throw. The save's only 15, so you definitely want to do things to help this Magen land that Disintegrate. Otherwise, it's just going to waste this. But CR8, giving up 8 of your max hit points, I would certainly say this is better than 8 of the Hypnos, which are the weakest ones. Get 1 of these versus 8 of those. I think that's better. At least it's not susceptible to being wiped out by like just AoE blasts, right? That 8 suggestion spells, even at DC 14, is interesting. If you can keep them alive, it might be better. Yeah, so this one's spicy. Now here's and this one almost kind of makes this spell interesting in my opinion, except that there is a magic item that was released in Netheril's Fall that you can craft. I think it's just if I recall correctly, it's just a rare magic item. You craft it and it can summon this Magen for several hours. I think it's like not every day, but it's like every few days. maybe it's every day. It's something like that. And that costs you no hit points and just like what, 2,000 gold pieces? Yeah, craft that, use the Terran Magen through that, don't give up hit points for it. So even though these are pretty good stat blocks and better than most things you can summon, it's an F for survival because it's reducing your maximum hit points. Probably the best prospect for using these is to wait till you're level 17, get the Wish spell, create a bunch of these, then use Wish to restore all of your maximum hit points. You might, with a 33% chance, not be able to cast Wish ever again because you're using it to restore your maximum hit points. But you'd be back to maximum hit points and maybe you'd never cast Wish again. But maybe that's worth it? Maybe? I don't know. Could be. I'm going to give this a C overall because it is so punishing. The cost is so punishing. Maybe they'll update the spell and make it something a little more reasonable, kind of like the homunculus, where you give up hit points temporarily as long as they're alive and not indefinitely. Crown of Stars. This one is an interesting one. It's an action to cast, hour duration, no concentration, and available to sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. 7 star-like motes of light appear and orbit your head until the spell ends. When you can use a bonus action to send one of the motes streaking toward one creature or object within 120 feet of you. And note that it doesn't say on subsequent turns. And it doesn't use one when you cast it. So if you want to use one in the turn you cast it, you can. It's going to take your action to cast the spell and your bonus action to throw the mote. Okay, but then on subsequent turns, it's just your bonus action to throw the mote after that. When you do so, make a ranged spell attack. On a hit, the target takes 4d12 radiant damage. Whether you hit or miss, the mote is expended. The spell ends if you expend the last mote. If you have 4 or more motes remaining, they shed bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for an additional 30 feet. If you have 1 to 3 motes remaining, they shed dim light in a 30-foot radius only. And you can upcast it. When you cast this with a spell slot of 8th level or higher, the number of motes created increases by 2 for each spell slot level above 7th. All right, so this is an interesting one in that it weaponizes your bonus action without using your concentration. It's a decent chunk of damage, especially you're talking 7 motes. It would take 7 rounds to use them all, but if you hit with all 7 of them, that's 28d12 damage, which is a good amount of damage. Each mote is going to deal on average 26 damage. So you're talking 26 times 7 damage. That's 160 hit points. That's a decent chunk of damage that you're dealing. Now it's spread out, so that's why I'm not giving it an A, right? If it was all at once, this would be S tier. I mean, it's more damage than Meteor Swarm if it were all at once. But spread out, this is going to be a B. And probably the best scenario is I don't know that I would take this as my first spell when I get to level 13. Make that some sort of concentration, super powerful spell. And then when you are higher level, when you start getting like level 17 and you've got, better usage for your concentration than one of these 7th level spells, then I would pick up Crown of Stars because it doesn't take concentration. So you're using your better spell slots for more powerful concentration spells. And this 7th level spell slot you're using to just weaponize your bonus action without taking concentration. It makes you pretty powerful. So that's why I'm going to give it a B. You don't take it right away. You take it later when you already have other things that are better for your concentration. So B overall, D for scouting, and that's kind of a mixed bag, right? Yes, you need light to see things, and so that's technically a scouting function, but if you're trying to scout, you don't want to be spotted, and glowing will give your position away. So, I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag on that one. Then we have Draconic Transformation. This one is available to druids, sorcerers, and wizards. It was added in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. And it is an action or a bonus action to cast, 1 minute duration, takes your concentration. Okay, but bonus action to cast. With a roar, you draw on the magic of dragons to transform you, taking on draconic features. You gain the following benefits until the spell ends. Blind sight, you have blind sight with a range of 30 feet. And then it describes how blind sight works, but blind sight has been defined a little bit differently and centrally in 5.5. Like for this one has a reference to, moreover, you can see invisible creatures unless the creature successfully hides against you. Now, this spell was written for 5e, and in 5e, invisible from like the invisible condition or invisibility spell was different than what you got from hiding. Hiding did not give you the invisible condition. It gave you similar benefits, but described separately in a different way, right? And so therefore you could be invisible and or hidden, and those were doing different things for you. In 5.5, all you get from hiding is the invisible conditions. Now they are the same thing. So your DM, ask your DM how they're going to rule it and see if it matters. A DM might just say, now you just see right through the invisible condition, which is how blind sight works against people who are hidden now, right? You just automatically spot them if they come into your view because they have the invisible condition and you see right through the invisible condition. That's probably the most logical way to run it. Although a DM could say, well, I'm going to, strictly run it as written, which says that you get some sort of different, the invisible condition you get from being hidden will still work against you. If they really want to strictly read this, that feels like an unnecessary level of complication to me. So I'm going to treat it as the way you would run it in 5.5, which is you get the invisible condition from hidden and you get the invisible condition from the invisibility spell, and they work the same. And blind sight defeats both of them. Okay, then you have a breath weapon. When you cast a spell and as a bonus action on subsequent turns for the duration, you can exhale shimmering energy in a 60-foot cone. Each creature in that area makes a dexterity saving throw, taking 68 force damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. And yes, that's 27 damage on average. For those of you who might be surprised, 8d6 is not the same average as 68. Yes, the average damage of 8d6 is 28 damage. The average of 6d8 is 27 damage. So 1 point of damage less for 6d8, but almost as much as a fireball in damage you're doing every single round that you use this. And it is a powerful way to weaponize your bonus action, right? Crown of Stars is not nearly as powerful, but here's the difference. Crown of Stars lasts 1 hour, no concentration. This lasts 1 minute, concentration. Yeah, so you got to pick and choose. I'm going to give this one an A because in the moment you need it in a fight, this is powerful. And it's weaponizing your bonus action and cast as a bonus action, which means you could use your action for a cantrip at the very least, or something else if you have another magic action that's powerful. And then on all subsequent turns, you could just be casting spells and then using this breath weapon as a bonus action for a good chunk of AoE damage. So strong. And on top of that, you get wings. Incorporeal wings sprout from your back, giving you a fly speed of 60 feet. So basically, it's the same fly speed as the fly spell, plus a really good breath weapon. It's almost as, you could say it's almost as powerful. If you just fly overhead and shoot it straight down, a 60-foot cone is equivalent, going straight down is like a 15-foot radius circle on the ground, right? So a 30-foot radius circle on the ground. So a bigger area than a fireball, basically the same amount of damage as a fireball that you're doing every single round as your bonus action. And then you're also casting spells on top of that. So this is pretty powerful for that 1 minute. I have seen players cast this. I've seen players cast Crown of Stars. That was powerful. Draconic Transformation was powerful. I have never seen a player cast Create Magen. Yeah, and that would surprise me to see anybody do it. So this is a good one. It does have a custom material component, which is a statuette of a dragon worth 500 gold pieces, but it's not consumed, so you can reuse it. Then we have Dream of the Blue Veil. And it sounds cool, but this is just a big plot device, okay? The casting time is 10 minutes. The duration is 6 hours. This is available to bards, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. You and up to 8 willing creatures within range fall unconscious for the spell's duration, which is 6 hours. Yes, one of those few spells that isn't 1 hour or 8 hours. It lands in between. Yes, there's like half a dozen that do that. Fall unconscious for the spell's duration and experience visions of another world on the material plane, such as Orth, which is Greyhawk, Toril, which is Forgotten Realms, Kryn, which is Dragonlance, or Eberron, which is Eberron. If the spell reaches its full duration, the visions conclude with each of you encountering and pulling back a mysterious blue curtain. I guess thus the name. The spell then ends with you mentally and physically transported to the world that was in the visions. To cast a spell, you must have a magic item that originated on the world you wish to reach, and you must be aware of the world's existence, even if you don't know the world's name. Your destination in the other world is a safe location within 1 mile of where the magic item was created. Alternatively, you can cast a spell if one of the affected creatures was born on the other world, which causes your destination to be a safe location within 1 mile of where the creature was born. The spell ends early on a creature if that creature takes any damage and the creature isn't transported. If you take any damage, the spell ends for you and all the other creatures, with none of you being transported, and the material component is a magic item or a willing creature from the destination world. So yes, this is just a plot device. Like you can't even use it unless the DM gives you a creature from that world or a magic item from that world. So you still need a MacGuffin to even use this. And even then, even if this was let's talk plane shift, which is also the same level, right? You could just plane shift. Plane shift has that tuning fork, which you may or may not have to have it tuned to the destination plane. Like you got to read between the lines and have the DM interpret that. Like even the gate spell, level 9, which doesn't have any kind of MacGuffin that you need, and you could just transport to anywhere. Look, just because you can transport anywhere doesn't mean that you just can go there. You have to talk with the DM and let them know that you're planning to do that so that they can prepare some content for you. What I just do with my players, if they spring something on that like me, I just say, oh, there's a loading screen. Try back next session. Yeah, just like that. That's what I say. Yeah, there's a loading screen there. Sorry. That plane fails to load because I didn't prepare that, guys. Like we're not a world, computer game engine. We only have a certain amount of content prepared. So anyway, big old P on this one for plot device. Then we have power word pain. Yeah, this is one of the power word spells, and in the older versions, they were worse. In 5.5, they've made them better, and they're still, most of them, the offensive ones, still not great. And so this one is doubly not great because it's the older version. It's an action to cast and available to sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. I feel like with the 5.5, they've given all of the power word spells to the bards. And I think they started doing that in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything too, but this one has not been given to bards yet, unless it was optionally given to bards. Because anything that was optionally given to bards in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything won't show up here in this list. You'd have to double check Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and turn on the options. Although even that would only work for the 5e bard. That doesn't work for the 5.5 bard because Tasha's Cauldron of Everything optional class features only applies to the 5e classes. So the 5.5 bard would not have access to this regardless. But the 5.5 bard doesn't want it. Although I take it back. The 5.5 bard does have access to this because this is on the wizard spell list, and the 5.5 bard can take, after they reach level 10, can take any spell from the wizard spell list. You speak a word of power that causes waves of intense pain to assail one creature you can see within range. If the target has 100 hit points or fewer, it is subjected to crippling pain. Otherwise, the spell has no effect on it, just nothing. The target is also unaffected if it is immune to being charmed. Great. So there's like 35% of creatures are immune to the charm condition in tier 4, like 30% are immune in tier 3. It's like 15, 20, 25. So is it 25% of creatures? I'd have to double check. I'll put up the stats on the screen. While the target is affected by crippling pain, any speed it has can be no higher than 10. The target has disadvantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws, other than Constitution saving throws. I guess that's because they didn't want to make this too good and give them disadvantage on the Constitution saving throw to end this. Finally, if the target tries to cast a spell, it must first succeed on a Constitution saving throw, which would not be a disadvantage, or the casting fails and the spell is wasted. A target suffering this pain can make a Constitution saving throw at the end of each of its turns. On a successful save, the pain ends. And it sounds pretty good, except the part about the 100 hit points. And I'll put that on the screen. This is from Caius, my friend on my Discord server, who has downloaded all the data and then done some number crunching, put it all together. And this is from 5.5 content produced by WotC only. So 5.5, core content and expanded content only. And this is the average hit points. And yes, even at level 11, when you are level 11, the average hit points of creatures you're going to face have like 160 hit points. So at best, you would have to soften them up first and then hit them with this. And even then, yes, one round, immediately there's no save. It's automatically going to work against them. At the end of each of their turns, then they start saving against it. No disadvantage on that saving throw, so they might make it anyway. And there are a lot better spells. If you want to take a creature out of a fight, hit them with Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Yeah, they'll get resaves every time you hit them, but that incapacitates them, knocks them prone. So all of your melee marshals are going to walk up and hit them and whack them for advantage on all their attack rolls. And they can't stand up either. They can Tasha's Hideous Laughter prevents them from standing up, so they're stuck prone the whole time. The best they can do is crawl around at half speed. That's all they have access to. And if your save DC is high enough, then they're never going to save against it, even with advantage anyway. And I have seen that multiple times in my high level games with people casting Tasha's Hideous Laughter, that they get their spell save DC so high that a lot of the creatures just can't save regardless. And so they're just stuck no matter how many times they get hit. Yeah, that's way better than Power Word Pain on a single target. So this is a D spell, unfortunately. Not great. Hopefully they make it much better when they print this into 5.5. Then we have Temple of the Gods. This is the cleric version of creating a bastion, a stronghold that could be part of your bastion. It is an hour to cast. The duration is 24 hours, available to clerics only and bards in 5.5. You cause a temple to shimmer into existence on the ground you can see within range. The temple must fit within an unoccupied cube of space up to 120 feet on each side. Now, the Druid Grove had a max size of a 90-foot cube. This is a 120-foot cube, so slightly bigger, or more than slightly. The temple remains until the spell ends. It is dedicated to whatever god, pantheon, or philosophy represented by the holy symbol used in the casting. So that's the material component. And so if you want it to be dedicated to your god, make sure you use a holy symbol dedicated to your god. Okay, you make all decisions about the temple's appearance. Great. The interior is enclosed by walls, floors, and a roof with one granting access to the interior and one door granting access to the interior and as many windows as you wish. Only you and any creatures you designate when you cast a spell can open or close the door. So just can't be opened by anyone else. Although if you give it windows, they can crash through the windows, I guess. The temple's interior is an open space with an idol or altar at one end. You decide whether the temple is illuminated and whether that illumination is bright or dim light. The smell of burning incense fills the air within, and the temperature is mild. So if you're freezing to death because you're in Icewind Dale, this will save you from that. If you're burning to death because you're in like the elemental plane of fire, this will prevent that as well. The temple opposes types of creatures you choose when you cast a spell. Choose one or more of the following creature types: celestials, elementals, fey, fiends, or undead. So you can choose all of them, or one of them, or anything in between. If a creature of the chosen type enters the temple, that creature must make a charisma saving throw, or they can't enter. On a failed save, they can't enter the temple for 24 hours. Even if the creature can enter the temple, the magic there hinders it whenever it makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw inside the temple. It must roll a d4 and subtract the number rolled from the d20 roll. So it's kind of like Bane, but Bane doesn't work on ability checks, but this works on ability checks. So it's the kind of the Bane effect extended to ability checks for the entire time they're inside, no concentration from you, which is kind of nice. In addition, when the sensors created by divination spells can't appear inside the temple, and creatures within can't be targeted by divination spells. Finally, whenever any creature in the temple regains hit points from a spell first level or higher, the creature regains additional hit points equal to your wisdom modifier. So you're going to get an extra 3. I mean, you're level 7. You're level 13. You should probably be capped out. So you're going to get an extra 5 hit points every time a creature regains hit points. Now, that doesn't have to be. It does have to be with a spell of first level or higher. So that's going to help. That's going to be very, very mild. So not a big deal. The temple is made from an opaque magical force that extends into the ethereal plane, thus blocking ethereal travel into the temple's interior. Nothing can physically pass through the temple's exterior. It can't be dispelled by dispel magic, and anti-magic has no effect on it. A disintegration spell destroys the temple immediately, and casting a spell in the same spot every day for a year makes this effect permanent. So yeah, you can create a permanent stronghold that could be part of your bastion or somewhere else if you cast it every single day. And this one it has a costly component, but it's not consumed. And it's only a 5 gold piece holy symbol. So you can just keep using your holy symbol every single day, which is the standard price for a holy symbol, right? That's not a special holy symbol. So you can just cast this every day and create like a temple, like that's got some beefy functionality. It's a very safe place. And you could create a new one every single year. There's nothing that says that you can't create multiple of these. So as far as like creating a stronghold goes, this is a great spell. And how often do you need that? Not very often. So this is going to be a C exclamation point with a D for healer, because yes, it does enhance healing on creatures, but it's super, super mild. It's like a very small amount of healing. Yeah, so this is going to be a C spell. And our last spell at level 7 for the 5e expanded content is Whirlwind. This is an action cast, 1 minute duration, concentration, and it's accessible by druids, sorcerers, and wizards. A whirlwind howls down to a point that you can see on the ground within range. The whirlwind is a 10-foot radius, 30-foot high cylinder centered on that point. Until the spell ends, you can use your action to move the whirlwind up to 30 feet in any direction along the ground. The whirlwind sucks up any medium or smaller objects that aren't secured to anything and that aren't worn or carried by anyone. A creature must make a dexterity saving throw the first time on a turn that it enters the whirlwind or that the whirlwind enters its space, including when the whirlwind first appears. So note that nothing happens if they are already in the space, right? There's no addition. They don't make this dexterity saving throw again if they're already in the space of the whirlwind, which is kind of weird. A creature takes 10d6 bludgeoning damage on a failed save or half as much damage on a successful one. In addition, a large or smaller creature that fails the dex save must now make a strength save or become restrained in the whirlwind until the spell ends. When a creature starts its turn restrained by the whirlwind, so there is an effect when it starts its turn in the area, but only if it starts its turn restrained by the whirlwind. So if they succeed on that first dex save or succeed on either the dex save or the strength save, then they're not restrained and they can stand inside the whirlwind and have no effect, not even difficult terrain on them. The creature is pulled 5 feet higher inside of it, so the whirlwind starts sucking them up in it, which is kind of funny, unless the creature is at the top. So it'll only take you as high as the top, which is only 30 foot high. A restrained creature moves with the whirlwind and falls when the spell ends, unless the creature has some means to stay aloft, like it can fly. So now, as you use your action to move the whirlwind around, they're going to move with it, which is kind of cool. A restrained creature can use an action to make a strength or dexterity check against your spell save DC, which should probably be changed at some point to an athletics strength or strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics check. But yeah, as it is, it's a flat ability check. If successful, the creature is no longer restrained, so they're doing, using their strength or dexterity to try to get their way out of the whirlwind after they've been restrained and like start getting sucked up by it. So if they succeed, they're no longer restrained, but they're hurled 3d6 times 10 feet away from the whirlwind in a random direction. And it says hurled. So check with your DM if you're going to use the spell. If they slam into a wall, it was hurled, which means with force. I would say, however far, every 10 feet they travel, they're going to take 1d6 bludgeoning damage as if they fell from a height to the ground, right? And then if they slam into a wall, they're certainly going to land prone, right? I mean, however they land, they're going to land prone because they got thrown sideways and then fell to the ground, right? So that seems logical to me, and that's how I would run it. And if that's how your DM rules it, this is a little bit better. If your DM doesn't rule it that way, this is not quite as good. Still hilarious. I want to use this just so creatures could be like hurled in all kinds of different directions and have them bouncing off of walls, whether or not they take additional damage. I just want to see that. So this is actually pretty decent. I would have given it an A if there weren't 2 saving throws that they had to fail to get that restrained condition. And it's 2 different saving throws, and usually they're kind of opposed saving throws, meaning that creatures that are bigger than medium size tend to have a higher strength score and a lower dexterity score, and creatures that are smaller than medium size tend to have a low strength score and a high dexterity score. Certainly not universal. It's just kind of a tendency. So you could use that and if you have a dex save spell and a strength save spell, you could say, oh, if they're smaller than medium, I'm going to use a strength save spell, and if they're bigger than medium, I'm going to use the dex save spell. Well, this uses both. So it's much more likely they're going to succeed at one of those because most monsters are good at one or the other. So you're always going to be trying to go against at least one of the creatures' good saving throws before it has any of the big effect. And the big effect is the restrained. I mean, I don't know, 10d6 is a good chunk of damage. And even though a creature is, if they succeed on those saving throws and they're not restrained by it and it's in their space, then it has no additional effects on them, right? Well, you can move it off on your turn and move it back on, and then it has effect on them again, because as soon as it re-enters the area, they have to make the save again. So, let's see, does it have any limit on the creature can make the save only once per turn? I don't think it says that. Okay, no, it says the first time on a turn that it enters the whirlwind space or that the whirlwind enters its space. Okay, so it's once per turn because it's the first time on a turn, not every time on a turn. So it is limited to once per turn, but you could still be like, creatures that get out of it, you just move it back over them, or if there's a creature already in it, but say move it off and move it back on them, and you can be grabbing them. In some ways, it's kind of like that watery sphere. Yeah, is that what it's called? Watery sphere, where you can be moving around grabbing creatures, or kind of like Bigby's hand, where you can continually moving it around trying to grab creatures. But this one can grab a bunch of creatures. Like a lot of creatures will fit inside that area of the whirlwind that you could be restraining them and then dealing damage to them on top of that. So it's even better than Bigby's hand in that sense that this is dealing damage and restraining creatures. Plus, S tier for the hilarity of flinging them around the battlefield. So that's awesome. Anyway, as a mechanical function spell, it's going to get a B because of those 2 saving throws. It's not going to get an A, but it's S tier for awesomeness. Yeah, I want to see it cast. Okay, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. If you don't have enough D&D in your life, check the video description. You can find a link to join my Discord. There's no paywall. It's just a community of people who love D&D, and if you love D&D, you're probably a good fit. There's also a link to join my Patreon. I've added 2 new tiers, so I've opened up 10 more spots for the Artificer supporter tier, which is people that if you want me to help you work on some homebrew, I'll work with you on the homebrew, and there'll be other people who are involved in the same kind of thing, and they can give you feedback as well. And if you want, when we reach done, and it's a quality, then I'll cover it in a video like I do with Comrade Warner stuff. So there's 10 more spots for that, and I've added a new frontliner tier. Yes, check that one out if you're interested in being a frontliner for DSR. There's also a link to the Google Drive that has this Google Sheet in it that has all the ratings and rankings for everything I've done. I've got rankings for books, rankings for classes, subclasses, partner content, spells, feats, background, species, all kinds of stuff. And I try to be consistent with it, but sometimes my ratings drift, sometimes I miss some things, and I really appreciate having community involvement in refining those ratings. So if you have thoughts on how those could be improved, how some of those should be adjusted, I'd love to hear it. If you have a lot of thoughts on a lot of different pieces of content, probably best to join the Discord. I've got a whole channel dedicated to discussing the ratings to help refine that stuff. And the more people that get involved, the better it gets. So yeah, and that Google Drive, that Google Sheet, everything in it, community resource, free to use, no paywall, and it never will be. My mission and goal is to make D&D more accessible to more people and lower the let's call it paperwork overhead to getting into D&D, whether it's your first time or your 100th time making a character. It can save you some time, help you focus in on what you want this character to be, and that's the goal. So if I paywalled that, that would be counterproductive. So it'll never be paywalled. And remember, D&D is a game. The point of it is to have fun with your friends. So please be cool when you play D&D, all right? Okay, catch you next time.